What is up, everybody? What a day to be alive. What a day for Soccerwise to be live on YouTube and Twitch, or for you to enjoy wherever you enjoy your podcast. David Goss and Tom Bogert with you. Sophia Smith just put it in the back of the net in extra time. The U.S. is leading right now, so if you hear me make noises, oohs and ahs, and itches and everything else in between, it's because I'm dying alongside everyone else in this semifinal for the U.S. women's national team. We will have full coverage of this game, as well as a preview of either the gold medal or the bronze medal match coming up tomorrow with Casey White, as we've been doing all Olympics. We're also going to break down the semifinals of the NWSL Liga MX Feminal Summer Cup that's happening tonight in Kansas City. And then we can talk all of our women's soccer there. But we're going to talk MLS here because it's a big day. And so I just wanted everyone to be warned, Tom, for all the noises that come out of me over the next hour. Even though the game will end before then, I'm using this as my mulligan for the entire show to react however I'd like.
I cannot be blamed for the noises that come out of me on a podcast. I think that should just be our blanket cover statement. Like the way that you have to sign like waivers for just any basic thing. Like, yeah, you just can't blame us for any noises that we make.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that makes sense. And I think it makes sense in terms of also talking about beautiful French strikers, whether it's ones that are currently in Major League Soccer or ones that could be coming going forward. You just broke the news that Antoine Griezmann is on the verge of, or not on the verge. He is in conversations around LAFC. You will explain that better than me, and we will talk about that coming up in just a moment. We also have some big news that you've already broken that we will dig into in the ice cream shop. RSL getting their DP attacker over the line, as well as Tim Ream, it sounds like, being close to finish for Charlotte FC, some other ones that you've broken as well. And then we're going to break things down with the New England Revolution. I talked about it a little bit yesterday. We obviously did a big segment about the DeJuan Jones trade last week. Then you spent your entire weekend talking about them on Twitter. So now I got to spend my whole week talking about them on this show. So we're going to talk about the Revs and everything they're doing, and then get you a little Leagues Cup update. Some big games over the last 2 days that have helped decide things. We are headed to the knockout rounds with one last match in the group stage. So we'll talk all about that, our favorites, what we expect, and so much more. But let's dig into the big news. Tom, how do you feel? How do you feel on a day like this where you're the one breaking stories like this and changing the landscape of soccer?
I think that's a bit of an overreach. I feel uncomfortable.
I don't think so. I won't take it.
I feel a little uncomfortable that the starting point here is about myself. It's not about me. Yeah, it's good. Just particularly this one, like, this is something that, you talk to people about all the time. I talk to sources about all the time. This is one of those that, like, everybody assumes, but, like, there hasn't been anything totally concrete. L'Equipe has reported that there have been talks, but, like, I've been talking that there has been talks for a while, right? Like, so you never know what is super new, what isn't. And then, like, kind of the last 24 hours, I was really pushing hard. And then with my colleague Ben Jacobs to get as much sourcing as we could, as much new information as we could on this. So, yeah, the immediacy was I was talking to Ben and saying, hey, like, are you about to get your side of, like, whatever source he was about to talk to? Because I was like, I'm going to go to the beach if not, but, like, I'm going to stay by my computer if you are. And he calls me. He goes, like, what do you mean? I was like, oh, like, I live, like, I could go from my apartment door to the sand in a minute. And he goes, oh, that's cool. You should go do that. And I was like, well, did you talk to the person? He goes, yeah, I just got off the phone, actually. It's like, no, then I'm going to do this. And we're going to break the news, like, if that's the case. So that's what it was like for mine.
I was unprepared for the HR meeting that I just started. We'll get Ben in here. We'll get his side of the story, and then we'll mediate going forward. And obviously, Tom is the #1 beach newsbreaker out there. If you lived in Majorca or wherever it is, where like every of the players actually beaches or vacations, maybe a Greek island, it would combine your worlds, because you could sit on the beach and say, Antoine, I heard you might be going to LAFC. Is that true? Instead, you can only break stories about the New Jersey Oceansiders and whatever else is going on. Did you see the Instagram that I sent you of Simone Biles holding the 6 medals? Yeah. It said, for everyone not staring at me and also not in my group chat, it said, if defending New Jersey was an Olympic sport. And that is that's what Tom would be doing, and that's what Tom does on his free time. Let's talk about the details with this one. What is the story as it sits right now with Antoine Griezmann?
LAFC are in active talks to sign French star Antoine Griezmann from Atletico Madrid, sources tell myself and Ben Jacobs. A deal before the August 14th MLS transfer window deadline has not been ruled out, but obviously it's difficult. There's a lot of different balls in the air. Everything is fluid. Griezmann to LAFC is when, not if, as for sources that are telling me. He has a 10 million euro release clause this summer, or he's a free agent next year. LAFC has been talking to Atletico Madrid about a potential price if they were to not trigger the clause. Getting his salary off their books would be something advantageous for Atletico Madrid. And again, all of the timing is super fluid, but there is that time crunch. Atletico Madrid are working on a deal to sign Julian Alvarez from Manchester City. They've already signed Alexander Sorloth. They might sell a player. If they sign Julian Alvarez, they will sell an attacker to Chelsea. So there's a lot of moving pieces. And right now, before the Alvarez move happens, like Griezmann is still viewed as a constant, a key player, somebody that is going to be one of their star attackers. That might not be entirely where this thing ends. I would still back Griezmann to be playing a ton and be a very important player for this team. But just with all of those deals up in the air and what could happen for the rest of the window in Europe, you don't know. So these are the things that Griezmann and his camp are considering. This is what Atletico Madrid is considering. All the while, LAFC are pushing. They'd love to have him here now. They'd love to have him here in the winter if that's the next alternative. Or they'd love to have him here next summer if that's what it has to be. But LAFC are pushing hard. They are in active talks. And again, the transfer window closes in 8 days. And sources on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean have told me that, an immediate move is not being ruled out. But again, it is very difficult.
Shout out to El Taguar Gaines. There, went for it on Twitch, who says hi from France. Big fan of the show. Hopefully there are a lot of French people coming in. So bonjour to all of you who want your Antoine Griezmann updates. I have been enjoying watching things in Paris and right now technically Lyon, I think, for the women's national team. So you guys can come watch things here as well, which goes to, by the way, the breaking news story in all of this, which is Antoine Griezmann is such an Olympic super fan that he is trying to get his early break on seating and tickets for LA 2028 that he is trying to sign right now. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't.
So he's been at a ton of events, and he tweets medal alert whenever he basically is the French Golza. He straight up tweets medal alert whenever a potential medal is happening. I believe for France, not for anyone, to the point that the president, Emmanuel Macron, was like, oh, I made a joke to my staff saying we need an app created so that I can make sure I know when all French teams are competing for medals. And they're like, did you do it? And he said, no, it's Antoine Griezmann. So Griezmann's like at the rugby games, at the badminton, at the table tennis. He's got to be in LA 2028. He's got to be there, and he's got to get this job done. So that's why this move is happening. If anyone needs the background behind it, and I'm sourcing this obviously off of Zero Reporting, you mentioned for Atletico Madrid the moves that are happening. He played 2,300 minutes last year. He was a full-time starter. 16 goals, 6 assists. That's all just La Liga numbers. Mm-hmm. Then you go into Champions League, 6 goals and assists as well. And he basically was a full-time starter for France at the Euros, which is why, as you say, this has a lot of moving parts in it because he is not done if he doesn't want to be at Atletico Madrid. And they are still working on, I believe, Conor Gallagher as well. That move keeps going back and forth on top of the Julian Alvarez move. It all comes to say, with the window closing somewhat soon, it feels good for LAFC in that they're in a safe place, which if they don't make this move, they are the Western Conference favorites. They have set themselves up that way very, very well with, as we talked about last week, Kike Oliveira, not a DP, so they're able to have another player like that who's at DP level, Mateusz Bogusz as well, where they can sort of wait on the spot, because your assumption would be if they don't get Griezmann done, they're not going to make a different move in that short of a time span.
No, this is Griezmann's spot. Like, that's as simply as I can put it. That, like, the first conversations when I was, like, asking people about trying to put together the latest news and what the updates were, like, it was, like, yeah, like, he's going to come here, man. Like that's how it's being viewed by all these parties. Yeah, of course, like, something could change, I guess. He could have a change of heart, but like Antoine Griezmann has talked about how he's coming to MLS for years. Like, I was trying to find, like, if you Google search Antoine Griezmann MLS, you could find articles from like 2018 where he's like, Carlos Vela, wait for me at LAFC. I'll be there. I'll see you later. Like, he's talked about maybe it'll be Miami, maybe it'll be Los Angeles, and like it's going to be LAFC. Again, like I'm trying to be careful because I know that words will be taken like as fact, or like the assumption from everybody is that
Yeah.
this is going to, again, when, not if, and is going to be LAFC. There was one source in our reporting was like, yeah, maybe there'd be a bidding war or something like that next summer if Griezmann ends up being a free agent, so maybe they need to sign him right now. And it's like, dude, everybody knows he's coming to MLS. Like, it's not like he's going to be like, oh, Fenerbahce put a big contract on the table. What do you think about that, LAFC? Like, he's going to come to MLS. And again, I think you know how careful I am, and I try not to be flippant like this. And again, I'll do the boring, like, yeah, whatever, things can change. Like, this has been an open secret for a long time.
The part of it that's a little bit new is the LAFC 100%. Like, we kind of, in the MLS convo, it hadn't really been said, like, where specifically, because he's someone who has popped up around the U.S. at Celtics games and around
Seattle Mariner baseball games.
Exactly, and around New York, and obviously would be happy to be in Atlanta, and you could probably see him get sold on the Chicago story. And like, he is very embedded. I mean, Olivier Giroud's quotes, who we are waiting for Giroud to appear, but he has now officially joined LAFC for this second half of the season. He said, quote, when he saw the news that I signed for LAFC, he was a bit jealous. He went on to talk about, I won't be surprised when Griezmann comes here. He loves American basketball, baseball, and football. It's like, I don't even like baseball. Get out of here. It's too much. So you are correct in saying that it's pretty obvious that he's going to be coming to MLS, but it wasn't sure where. And LAFC are always going to be a team that's mentioned, and then the city of LA is always going to be mentioned. The Galaxy don't have the openings. They don't need him. That is not the move they need to make. It feels like with Giroud, they've entered a little bit of a win now mode, and we could break down what he adds to the team and what he does. I think that might be a little bit too much. One, because we don't know if it happens, and two, because he's Antoine Griezmann. He's one of the best attacking players on the planet. He will add a lot of good things. He will have some other things he does differently. I don't know that this makes LAFC like a dominant pure possession team, and I don't know that they care. He is an elite finisher. He is an elite chance creator. He's an elite pressing attacking player, and he is a French international, full international, who starts across World Cup finals, European semifinals, and everything else over the last few weeks or last few years. And like, LAFC would be better tomorrow if they had him than if they didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's got the fourth most caps for France ever. He's got the fourth most goals ever. He's 33 years old. And I'm just going to go read those stats like you were alluding to, that like, yeah, he's still performing at a high level. Like, again, last season he had 32 goal contributions in 3,900 minutes for Atletico Madrid. The year prior, he had 35 goal contributions in 3,600 minutes. Like, this is a player that is still, he's at the end of his prime. Like, prime is still the correct word for him. Obviously, that could be a slippery slope, but like, a slightly post-prime Antoine Griezmann would still be one of the best players in MLS. And, like, that's kind of the top line for me here. As you said, like, I probably think he'd be the biggest non-Messi star in this league. Like, I think he'd probably be number two. L'Equipe had reported that LAFC were to try to sway him would be to make him the second highest paid player in MLS behind Messi. Like, I don't know if that's totally going to happen because Insignia's on 15 million or whatever, but, like, it'll probably take something in that ballpark. But I don't know. This would be an absolutely gargantuan signing for LAFC and Major League Soccer.
Gargantuan is what I'm always saying, and I believe you. As well, Tom's so mad at me that I keyed in on that and went with that. One of the things I think is interesting, and we said it's pretty obvious that he'll come, but he's done a couple interviews over the last few weeks talking about sort of the mistake he made in going to Barcelona and how uncomfortable he was and how happy he is. I do wonder if that's part of the thinking in terms of the timing, which is he left Atletico Madrid, he was unhappy, he went back, he's happy again. Does he want another year of that? Like, does he want to risk a life change again? And he's never coming back. So I wouldn't be shocked if he says, like, I still want to do this one more time. I still want to play for Simeone. I still want to be around this group. I still want to be a part of this. And that would be coming down to this next 10 or so days decision, which becomes a little bit tough. But for LAFC, as we say, it doesn't really kill them. So they are not in a bad spot to wait. There are, I'd say, most MLS teams, if they were trying to sign a player like this, they wouldn't be able to take it up until the window because they would need to fill in that spot for someone else if they didn't get it over the line. And that's where, again, LAFC are in a really safe spot to be a part of this conversation, potentially a part of this deal. And if it moves to next year, then you still have the spot open. You're able to sort of operate for the rest of this season. Then you open up next year. You probably sign him to a pre-contract At that point, you lock him in for that summer window when he would arrive, and then you have a lot of the pieces you have now to maintain things until you get to that point in the summer. But that could be a team that's coming off a trophy at that point with the way this LAFC team is set up and the way they are built. Anything else to think about around this one?
Yeah, just since we've gone on, or in the last 25 minutes, Fabrizio Romano is reporting that Julian Alvarez has accepted personal terms with Atletico Madrid, and he is going to sign with Atletico. Again, he can be complementary to Griezmann. Same thing with Alexander Sorlov. So I don't think that this directly means that Alvarez signed, Griezmann's out. I mean, it definitely that would at least confirm one of the things that's in the air, and who knows what else will happen with Atletico Madrid summer. This is where it's difficult for MLS clubs with the window closing on August 14th for American clubs, or the window closing, I believe, in 2 days for Canadian clubs, right? Which is just a fun new thing for us to figure out and talk about. There's multiple transfer windows. So that's
well,
fun.
The window only closes for U27 initiative players that are on allocation disorder money. So that's all you have to figure out, and it's not listed anywhere.
So yeah, and so that's the thing with Griezmann here, that he'll have if it were to happen now, all parties have to make a decision. It'd be Atletico and LFC agreeing to a transfer fee if it's not triggering the purchase, the release clause, and then it's Griezmann deciding, agreeing on a contract and coming here. That would all have to happen within the next few days. I remember in previous years. So again, the window closes next Thursday, or no, 8 days from next Wednesday, and people would tell me, for European players, if they weren't flying 48 hours before, or maybe 36 hours before, they could not guarantee that they'd get the deal done. So they would set internal deadlines of everything has to be set and being traveled, 48 hours ideally before the window. So we're coming up on this here, and this is where I talked to CSOs around the league about the difficulties and frustrations with where the window ends in MLS compared to the rest of the world. And this isn't just a Antoine Griezmann thing. This is more so for the Karol Swiderski level players, and wherever their counterparts are in Europe, that players like that move toward closer to the end of the window. So whether it's MLS clubs selling or MLS clubs trying to buy, and a player being hey, I'm going to hold out. Maybe I'm going to get that Premier League offer in a week and a half. And whether it does or doesn't come, they can't say yes to the MLS club if they're waiting on an offer. So that all comes into it here, which again, I wanna stress that it will be difficult for them to get it done over the next 8 days. But again, it is absolutely a possibility.
Do we know why the date is set? From
yes.
MLS point of view?
I'm gonna go into this deeper. It's a lot of reporting out for this kind of story, but it's I'm not.
No, Tom, I'm just gonna casually ask you an unprepared question on this podcast and ruin about 5 weeks of reporting for you.
That's kind of thing. Can't say too much, but internet transfer. But it's a fair question. That's why I started going deep into this story that I'm going to be trying to write. Transfer windows are set by the federations, and all over the world, you need a primary transfer window and a secondary transfer window. Obviously, the European primary window is happening right now, while the MLS secondary window is happening now. So this is not an MLS thing. This is something that MLS can try to change if they want, but it's a federation thing. It's got to be MLS, USL, any other professional league. I believe it's also men and women's have to be the same. I take that back. I don't know that for sure. But anyway, my whole point is it's not just an MLS thing. It's something that all, U.S. soccer and all professional leagues would have to be behind. So that's why they can't just flippantly change it at when and if they want. And as you saw with the Canadian leagues, the Canadian Federation just blindsided Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver when they tried to change the transfer window, and then they came with a compromise where, again, they opened a few days before and closing a few days before the American MLS clubs.
Beautiful. It is a genius thing to work on. As you said, though, where MLS stands, we're all U.S. leagues, because we can talk about MLS. You bring up USL. It's not like USL is jumping a line in international transfer conversations. You are hoping to operate in sort of some of the gray space at the end of windows, where we talked about with Gubamine, you're hoping that you can find a player who's better than what everyone else realizes, maybe gets lost in the shuffle, maybe doesn't have the opportunities they think, or can you sell your player? For the most part, you're probably going to lose out financially the earlier you operate in the window, because everyone still has a little bit more bargaining power, and MLS is not at the front of the list to be oh yeah, we're going to spend $70 million on Julian Alvarez, so we'd like to do it right now and have them in. Last point on Griezmann, he is not with Atletico Madrid. in their preseason right now. That is apparently because of his Euros run. He was the last player to return from international competition, so he's continuing his sort of rehab workout and everything in Madrid as the team is in Sweden. But I could just be messy and say like, oh, well, he's not with the team because he's trying to move to LAFC. And you can clip that out and do whatever you want with that going forward. Let's dig into some other big ones you've got here. Tom, let's open up the ice cream shop. Let's get a little bit of that cool breeze, get those little spoons out, and start to feed us a few different flavors.
Real Salt Lake are finalizing a deal to sign attacking midfielder Diogo Goncalves from FC Copenhagen. This would be their DP number 10. The fee will be kind of just north of $3 million, and he's traveled. And to finalize the move this week, he's a 27-year-old. He had 11 goals and 6 assists in 2,500 minutes last season for Copenhagen, including a big performance against Manchester United in the Champions League. He was formerly with Benfica, somewhere around, I think, 80 to 100 appearances with Benfica, kind of before he went to Copenhagen. So this is an in-prime attacking midfielder who can be goal dangerous. Like, again, you just kind of look at the numbers, and his underlying numbers in a small sample size in the Champions League showed that he's kind of like he's goal dangerous. And that works in this attack because they didn't just desperately need a chance creator like kind of Atlanta did with Moranchuk. Like, they needed somebody who could fit with everybody and do a little bit of everything. Like, Diego Luna is a creative player, but he can score goals. Andres Gomez is a vertical player, but he can kind of tuck in and he can create a little bit. He can score goals. Chicho Arango is a complete 9 at this stage of his career. It's really awesome to see. So they needed somebody who could kind of fit in with that and be intelligent enough to mold different roles and different spaces as the front four is fluid. So I really love this signing for Real Salt Lake.
It is. It feels like it checks all the boxes. When you look at the profile, 27 years old, Copenhagen, you're talking about a different level in Denmark. We have seen players come from Denmark to MLS and be really successful. Denmark is Copenhagen and then everyone else. And so, like, you're talking about a player who's coming from that elite conversation at that level, which that's a club that sort of borderlines into bigger leagues at their level, what they spend, the quality of player. You add Benfica in behind that, a couple loans as well. Like, this has the makings of, the profile of a really good signing. Evander is sort of like one of the names you think of when you think of a profile of this player at the age group, similar background, similar club setup, and like that's been a big hit for obviously Portland. And then you talk about flexibility and how he can fit in and what this team can do. And I think the biggest part about this is they're not going to be reliant. Like, he can find his feet and he can figure it out because there's a ton of talent. There's a ton of options in this group. They don't need him to step in and they don't need to play through him, similar like what San Jose had to do with Lopez from day one. He can sort of find his feet, find his spot, and build as this year goes along, because this is a MLS Cup play for this team. Like, they're going to be a home team, it feels like, in the first round. I think anything outside of that is, for RSL in year one of this group, whatever, your second, your third, like, it's not the biggest difference in the world at that point. But if you can have a player like this ready to roll into that postseason and take you over the edge and then change things for the future, because at his age, he could be around for 3 to 4 years as you build things with him and Chicho Arango.
Yeah, that's another point that I really like about this signing. That, look, I know Andres Gomez and Diego Luna won't be here forever, but you have two really rising young talents. Then you have in-prime Chicho Arango, who's going to be here for as long.
It's over, baby. USA going to the gold medal game. All right, sorry.
No, you're good. Chicho Arango obviously will be the centerpiece for this team for the long term. And then this is another player that I think straddles both lines of win now, plus, like, he's going to be here. He can be here for several years if it goes successful. He can mold with Arango as, whenever Gomez and Luna get sold, and then the new U22 initiative players come in, or another young DP comes in, or whatever it is, that he can be both timelines. And at 27 years old, there's a higher probability of this player adapting to Real Salt Lake and MLS and having an impact down the stretch this season than it would be if they signed a young player. Like, I brought this up on the show recent weeks talking about Gomez. Like, Gomez showed flashes in his first year with Real Salt Lake. He wasn't this kind of game changer right now. Like, that's not to say that Goncalves will be like that. That's a high bar, but the likelihood that he hits the ground running is higher because of his age, because of his adaptability, because he's played in Portugal and Denmark already. So now adapting to a new league, a new country, everything else at 27 years old is a little bit easier than as a 19, 20-year-old.
Ooh, okay, let me just recover for a second on this side. Shout out to U.S. Women's National Team getting to the gold medal game. Sophia Smith with the goal, legendary. Emma Hayes, some big decisions made, pulled Lindsey Horan going into extra time. Love to see that. Hopefully, Tierna Davidson will be back. Huge loss if she's not. Okay, the U.S. is back. Back in a gold medal game. Back in a final. Like, that's what it's all built around. That's what it was for. I think they're there quicker than I thought they'd be. And I will watch Trinity Rodman cook defenders any day of the week. So whether it's Brazilian or Spanish, step up. Good luck. Let's go. That will be coming up this weekend. We will get to all of that, of course, as we go forward. All right, I'm back in now. Now I'm back in now. I'm with you. I can bounce between both of them and live both lives as we go forward. For RSL, would you say that this kind of is it for them in a window?
Yeah, and like, look, they signed Benji Michel. That was a low-key signing that I really like because he's somebody who gives you depth, but like that's a different option off the bench. I know Anderson Julio gives you the pace as well and that dynamism in the attack. Benji Michel is always good to have another one of those. Lachlan Brook, a younger winger, like that is further depth in the attack. And now with a DP10 coming in, like it's got to be it. I mean, I can't say it with 100% certainty, but I feel pretty strongly that with those three additions plus Javane Brown in defense, like where's their room or even flexibility? So well done by Real Salt Lake for kind of hitting everything that they wanted to and needed to.
What's next?
Tim Ream, Charlotte FC are finalizing the deal to sign Tim Ream from Fulham. He traveled. He's in Charlotte. He's completing the move. Everything's all done. This deal has more or less been on the table for 2 months. It was waiting for Fulham to get a replacement, which is interesting considering they said, Tim Ream, you're not in the plans next year. And then he has a move ready to go. And it's like, no, well, we can't let you leave until we sign a replacement. It's like, well, you told me to leave. Or you told me that you didn't want me. What do you mean? So that's why he waited in limbo for a couple months. And there wasn't many updates until Fulham officially announced a center back over the weekend. And that set in motion, allowing Ream to travel to Charlotte to finalize this deal.
I would like to throw out there before we get into this, we have a serious amount of San Diego stuff. It's in the chat now. We had in the Discord, like San Diego fans are anxious. And it's like, your team doesn't start for another year. Relax. They want signings done right now. Talking Tim Ream, I guess we've mentioned it a ton. In the end, are you surprised that it's Charlotte for him?
No, and that's probably unfair to say no, just because like when I first heard that like Ream was coming to MLS this summer, it was like, oh, like it's Charlotte. They're more or less agreed to deal. So like right. I didn't even have any.
You've been thinking this for a while, yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't even have any time to speculate. Oh, where could he go? A lot of people have deduced St. Louis.
Yeah, doesn't fit the style.
Yeah,
doesn't make sense. Yeah, he's from there. He's a legend in St. Louis.
Yes,
it would be nice for St. Louis to have
exactly
some of that generation of great St. Louis players. He doesn't make sense in that team, and that's why it was never going to happen.
Yeah, but for the off the field stuff, like I would have loved for that to happen. But he makes more sense in the Charlotte team, and
he makes more sense in Kansas City than he does in St. Louis. I don't know what his feelings on that are, so we can find out when he gets here and we can interview him.
Intro press conference. That'll be the first question. But yeah, so I've had people ask like, what does this mean? Miranda's about to be sold? No, he just signed a new contract. Miranda watch starts in the winter, and then maybe next like. He's staying this summer. That's what people at the club have been telling me, in me asking in April, May, and June. And then he signed a new contract to kind of confirm that. It opens up Privet to play in defensive midfield, maybe if they need it. I don't know how much they're going to go to that because they have a really good duo in defensive midfield in Diani and Westwood. Then Nikola Pekovic to get on the field is playing as a number 10. He's more of an 8 and a 6. So I think they have enough options in central midfield. Sure, Privet could be that. Now you can kind of play 3 at the back as well, but for me, I just think that this is going to be Ream and Miranda. And it's really hard done on Andrew Privet, who has done nothing wrong to lose his job. But you signed Tim Ream to be a starter. People have been like, oh, maybe he's depth or rotation or cover for when Miranda leaves. Like, no, dude. Like, you signed Tim Ream to be your starting center back, to be your anchor. So that's got to be the plan. And again, like, if he's not performing, maybe Dean Smith takes a look at it. But, like, I think until proven otherwise, Ream is a locked-on starter.
He's also your left center back, Malanda, right center back. That's not like the whole world. All these guys can play both sides. That's fine. I don't hate the 5 in the back convo if they don't get the number 10 move over the line, because if Swiderski's still there, that's a way to play him and Ajamang, and Abada can be your 10 behind them in front of 2 central midfielders that cover ground, or he can play as one of the wing backs that's staying higher and rotating. It's not perfect for that setup, but like it might be a clean way for them to progress going forward and a way for them to have two legit finishers in the box and get a ton of balls into the box from wide areas, which is something they've tried with Vargas as a winger and has been successful off and on going forward. It also feels like with Andrew Privet, it's like at some point you need depth and quality in a team, especially up a spine. You're also putting Tim Ream on turf now and like having him come out of a full season and a Copa America into a full season. So for the rest of this year, I don't know how many minutes you're going to get out of him. And like you need an Andrew Privet there then to be an option along with Malanda and have the three of them rotating into the spot. Because this is a club that knows what it's like to not have center backs.
Exactly. And again, you can never have too many quality center backs in the league because it's very difficult to get multiple quality center backs in this league. And I will add, you touched on the DP10. That search is active. I said it last week. I'd be very surprised if they don't get a deal over the line before the transfer window is closed. Interesting.
All right. A lot of exciting news for Charlotte. I feel like we talk about them a lot for a team that's like hasn't played a soccer game in over a week.
Yeah.
Let's keep going here. This one fascinates me. Let's talk Dallas Magno because you are putting out the report that he is headed down back to Brazil on loan.
Corinthians is finalizing a deal to sign Dallas Magno on loan from NYCFC. That's all I can confirm. This was reported by Globo in Brazil first. They're saying that it's a year-long loan, and they're saying that there's a purchase option. I forget if it's 12.5 or 15 million, something to that effect, which would make sense. Or that part of it would make sense, except some background here that I can add is last summer, Bologna made an offer for loan with a 15 million purchase option. NYCFC rejected it because they said, we're open to letting him leave and at that price, but it would have to be a permanent deal immediately. Like loan with purchase option is not something that they were looking to do last year. Situations have vastly changed because he's played 100 minutes across all competitions this year or whatever it is. So they didn't have the luxury to say, we're only going to do it for a permanent move. Obviously, Magno is pushing for it for regular playing time. When I was kind of asking people around on this, maybe a month ago or something to like that, of like, yes, he's probably going to leave this summer. It just, I think that he's focused on Europe was kind of the first intel I was getting, and that the idea, there's been plenty of Brazilian clubs to try to sign him over the last month, and the thought process that was delivered to me was like, if he wants to go back to Brazil on August 30th, there's going to be a club that desperately wants him. So he's holding out a little bit to see if any European offers come up. Clearly that didn't happen. I don't know if he's gotten information that it's super unlikely to happen over the next 4 weeks, or he just said, you know what, I really want to go to Corinthians, let's do this.
This is just, listen, it's not my money, so I don't really care. And NYCFC or CFG can burn it into the sky however they want, however they'd like. This was a massive signing for a super talented player, then a player who performed for you. And the last year and a half experience with Dallas Magno has been bizarre. You come out of 2022, where he scored 7 goals, had 10 assists, started 32 matches for you. And you come into a spot then where he's getting offers already. So if the whole idea is to flip him, great. Do it there. If you're going to bring him back, he is a central part of your team then. And they've almost built without him. Obviously, they spent a long time trying to play him at center forward, which made him a worse player, which made them a worse team.
Yep.
But then the knock-on effect out of that was, we're starting to sign center forwards. Now he's benched. Now he's not a starter for this team. And he became a sub at the end of last year. And then this year is bizarre. You said it. He has played 65 minutes in Major League Soccer. He is, hands down, one of the most talented players in the league anywhere, but especially for young players in MLS. And so you've now killed his transfer value. And of course you're not going to make money off him because you spent a lot on him. And that was a really cool move for NYCFC, which was we're going to flex our financial power and say we can sign U22s at a DP level. We can go out and spend a number like this because the rules allow us. And they're not going to sign the next Pirlo and Lampard. And that's great. This is how we're going to show that we're a big team in New York. And it was supposed to replace Tati and all of those things. And a lot of it made sense. The last year and a half has been shocking with this. I was almost at the point where it's loan him in MLS. Let him play a little bit. Let him recoup some value. Send him to a Western Conference team who anyone will take him. And then you can flip him at the end of this year. And what's tough about this move is a year loan from now means you are going to be in a salary crunch next year trying to figure out, Is he coming back in the summer window? Do we have to account for him on our books? Do we have to account for him on our roster? Or are you just going to end up in a spot where if he plays well for Corinthians, they probably sign him and you're good? If not, you are probably taking a massive loss on that signing and saying, like, we just got to get him out the door before he comes back here.
Yeah, so a couple points on this, and one, I was remiss to not mention this in the beginning of this. I'm not entirely sure if this opens a DP spot or not. It depends on what the salary coverage is for Corinthians. I believe there's a loan fee, so how much the loan fee is, whatever the math has to happen where, that the salary coverage plus fee offsetting the initial transfer fee. I don't know if it opens up a spot or not. It's like Atlanta United have two U22 initiative players still taking up U22 spots who are on loan out of the club. Like, that could be what's happening here. I don't know that for sure either way. A couple points on his experience in New York. Yes, up until July 2022, he was awesome. He was the best left winger, I thought, in MLS the first half of 2022. There was a sporting director I talked to who was like, playing him as a left winger, like, he has Champions League potential, and like thought the world of him. You remember what happened in July 22? Tati Castellanos was sold. He has not been the same since. First of all, without having Tati, but more to the point, being miscast as a center forward. And they tried that for a while. They had conviction in it. It just didn't work. And then when he went back to left wing, he just seemed broken, right? Like, I don't know if it was confidence. I don't know if it was a system or whatever it was. Like, they botched that a little. They botched that. Like, he should not have been playing as a center forward. In NYCFC's defense this year, where you're talking about why are you bet, like, if he's not playing, you're ruining his transfer value. Yeah, he wasn't playing because he sucked. So, like, they had plenty of options on the wings. If you're Hannes Wolf, if you're Augustin Ojeda, who is working to try to get his minutes, be like, I'm outperforming this guy in training, I'm outperforming this guy in the field, but you're going to play him just because he was bought for more money than I was? Like, that's not fair. So I defend them in that regard. I understand your frustrations and the points. Like, they botched it. I'm not giving them a pass on that. But this season, like, he's had plenty of chances. And when he wasn't performing, like, simple as, like, time to move on. So hopefully the loan works out for everybody. Like, this is an extremely talented player. I really thought it was going to go much, much better for him in MLS. That, half season in 2022, I think, is much more what he's like than what we've seen over the last year and a half. But alas, it didn't work out. And if he shows this quality in Corinthians, they can at least break even on that. And to your point, City Football Group has plenty of money. I don't think that we need to be crying over their pocketbook.
Yeah, they don't care. I will counter with this. I'm not in training, so yeah. He's playing poorly and he's not a positive part of the group, like, then that's a mess. This is a team that won one of their first 7 games and then have had 2 other streaks of 3 to 4 games in which they've not gotten a win in a row. Fair. My point being, they have stuck with players this year who they have belief in, and they've been right. Like Hannes Wolf, I thought was a fantastic signing. It took a while.
It did.
They stuck with him through some downtime. He has hit. Baccarar, they've probably stuck with too long, and they've tried and whatever here and there. Santi Rodriguez had struggles early in the year as well. They found a better spot for him and all of that. But they showed conviction and belief in those players, and they, like, made it work. And it's odd to me that you wouldn't do that with a player who has already proven they can be successful in this league with this team. So it seems like there's some disconnect, and it's a $10 or $11 million disconnect. Like, that's a huge disconnect to have and deal with. But I think this is a fascinating move. I'll be interested to see how he plays in Brazil, like how quickly it comes back for him and how quickly he handles things. Let's talk about NYCFC for 1 second longer, and then we'll move on, because a wild game last night. They went to Cincinnati, their final group stage in Leagues Cup game, a chance to win the group. They go up 2-0 on FC Cincinnati, and then Cincinnati scores 4 goals in a 10-minute span from the 79th to the 89th minute after making basically 4 or 5 subs to the team, a couple of halftime, a couple later on. It starts with Pavel Buka's goal. It's a really nice goal. Like, there's not a ton of an opening there. He pulls it back to his right foot on the top of the 18 and then sneaks it in the low corner at the near post, and then they just, like, explode from there. Yuya Kubo, of course, is better than Lewandowski as a center forward. He turns and scores. Like, it was everything happening for FC Cincinnati, and they are fun to watch because games like this happen. But it was a big moment for this team where it's like, it's been up and down over the last few weeks. You get the Bupenza reports this week You struggle against Querétaro. You have a good finish to the MLS run before the break, but have some weird games where you don't get results that you'd expect. Like, this has been up and down, and this was a crazy up to finish for FC Cincinnati.
Things were looking bleak, down 2-0 to NYCFC after Mijatovic scored in the 61st minute. His first goal, by the way, $8.6 million, highly rated signing, Serbian youth international. I was singing his praises in the group chat to you. I have not returned to that take for a while because nothing was happening. Again, first goal, so let's see what happens. But 2-0 down when they brought in Buka and Yuya Kubo, like, it was pretty quiet in the stadium. I know that it wasn't full because Leagues Cup, whatever, right? Like, but like, you could kind of feel like, like they went into the Leagues Cup with a bad run at the end of ahead of the break, and things weren't looking good. How quickly it changed was wild. And to correct you, they made 6 subs in the second half because I forget if it was them or NYCFC that had a concussion substitute, but they had so they made 6 changes, and
I knew it felt like subs. A lot.
But it was unreal. Like, I swear, like, I was like, all right, I'll stay, see how the subs do. And like, I really wanted to watch Chidozie Awaziem. He's awesome. My God, amazing. He's phenomenal. Like, there's a scenario in which Cincinnati has Chidozie, Matt Miazga, and Miles Robinson as a back 3, and then Obi Roboto in front of them. Are you kidding me? How do you score against that team? Yeah. Do you need to defend with anybody other than those 4 players? Is everybody else just going to run forward? Anyway, so excellent signing, great pivot by the club to get it done, get him here, and he looked phenomenal. Can I add it?
Can I add on that real quick? In possession, he looks like a game changer. He came on, first of all, playing the middle of the back 3, which to me is huge. Like, you need a quarterback to the back line. If you don't have the talent you can have, like, let's say Miles isn't around at times, Miazga's obviously not there. Like, Ian Murphy and Kip Keller are better players with a steady hand the middle who controls things. It's why that Miazga was such a big loss last year in the playoffs, where Mosquera was just as talented as anyone else, but that wasn't his position. That's not what he does. That was huge, and immediately demands the ball. He's passing in between. He's breaking lines. He's passing into tight windows. He steps forward, picks it up, and he's dribbling with the ball at pace for a little bit. And it's like he's super comfortable in midfield. He's not bothered by being around players. Those are all elements that would take this team to another level, because it is not exactly the profile of the players they have. So you add in bringing in a in their prime high level defender, and if you then add some aspects to this team in possession or ability to get out and transition quicker or whatever, like, it could be wild for this team.
Yeah, again, so those are all great points, particularly that he's going to raise the level of the other 2 center backs next to him. And again, I heard a ton of great things about him, but I missed his debut, and I really wanted to kind of key in here. So I was like, all right, I'll watch most of this game. If it gets out of hand, I'll change over to another game. I only say that because several folks in our Soccerwise Discord, you can get into our Discord by subscribing on Patreon, we were talking during the games, and a few people were like, what just happened? Like, it's 4-2? I turned it off at 2-0 because I wanted to go check out another game. I had my remote in my hand, and I was going to put on another game right before Buka scored, as I guess I'm saying. But, like, do you want an inkling into the notes I was writing down during this game? Like, in the 75th minute, I was like, all right, I think I've seen enough here. Let's figure out what the next game is. Jot down a couple notes. One was FC Cincinnati's attack without Lucho Acosta. It's a tough hang. I don't want to hang out with them. I don't want to watch them. It's not great. Then they scored 4 goals in 10 minutes, so good take, Tom. And then the other side of it was, can Santi Rodriguez be the best player on a trophy-contending team for NYCFC? And this is a question I've been going back and forth with in my own head most of the season, because I really rate Santi Rodriguez. I'd love it if he was their second best player, but he's their best player. And I'm like, yeah, I think so. And then they completely capitulate in over 10 minutes against Cincinnati. And again, 1 game sample size, anything can happen, but this team, the strength of it is supposed to be its spine. I know James Sands was out of the game at this point, but between Sands, Parks, Santi in the middle, Burke Reese, Thiago Martins in central defense, like, the idea is that this doesn't happen. You don't lose 2-0 leads. You control the game. You have all of that. So the 2 biggest notes that I wrote down, the third one was about how good Chidozie Awaziem was, and I think that aged well. But the first 2, that's tough. Just tough.
To be clear, this show is a Justin Hack safe space. Like, this, we are Justin Hack.
You're a Justin Hack safe space,
Tom,
bro. It's been 8 years,
Tom,
dude.
We signed up for this together.
No.
I compliment the state of New Jersey every once in a while. We're in this together.
No, you don't, though.
Sometimes I do. Just not
the absence of jokes is not the same as compliments.
I compliment them as much as you say good things about Justin Hack, and that's where the show stands. That's what we do here on Soccerwise. As Tom mentioned, subscribe to the Patreon. You get access to the Discord. You get to add to the mailbag, which I did yesterday, which was great because I didn't sleep on Sunday night and then spent like 8 hours putting together that show because people ask really good questions, and then I have to like genuinely process stuff, as well as you can hang out and talk during the games and all of that stuff as well. Tom, finish us out here. Any final scoops before we jump into some Revs chat?
Yes. Philadelphia Union are working on a deal to sign Haitian international midfielder Danley Jean-Jacques from FC Metz. Jose Nunez was the first one to report on this. He made 33 appearances in Ligue 1 for Metz last season. They ended up getting relegated. He's a number 6, number 8. He kind of fit in that midfield diamond somewhere. No, I was told as of, what was this, yesterday? Sorry, it's time is a flat circle. There's been a lot of information. I was told, 24 or 48 hours ago that the deal wasn't completely done. It's very much expected to get that way. So we'll see where that lands. One name to watch is Jack McGuinn. Is something going to materialize over this month? We shall see. There's interest, but I haven't heard anything about serious offers. And then there's Orlando City in talks to sign a Norway youth international midfielder, Heine Gilkling Bruseth from Kristiansund. Perfect pronunciation. Dismount, that's a 10. Like Simone Biles. This would be a U22, probably a U22 initiative deal if it gets done. There have been multiple bids. They have not reached an agreement yet. Orlando has other options, so we'll see what happens. And then lastly, since, right before we started the show, Columbus Crew officially signed right back Andres Herrera on loan from River Plate through next summer. Deal includes a purchase option. 25-year-old was a regular-ish with River Plate. 80 appearances. He's just now Wilfred Nancy gets another option at right wing back.
As I say, always, or at the 10, or at goalkeeper, because it's Nancy, and he doesn't care about positions. I mean, positions are an ancient thing to talk about. Positionless soccer is the future, and
get back to WM.
Now. Yeah, let's talk Revs now. We talked about them a little bit, actually a lot bit with the Dwan Jones trade, which, by the way, the Herrera move probably solidifies even more. We'll see Jones a bit at center back. Might see Mo Farsi at one of the center back spots as well, like a bunch of options for that team. On the flip side for the Revs, I was pretty upset about the move for them last week. They got Will Sands in return plus $600,000 allocation money for Dwan Jones, who is one of the best left backs in Major League Soccer.
Yep.
They have now continued along that track, it feels like, to sort of recreate the team here in the summer window. So the move I mentioned yesterday on the Mailbag show, Henry Kessler going in place of Tim Parker, and about $600,000 allocation as well. So first of all, I would like to not thank anyone who does things with Tim Parker and Tim Ream on the same week, because I've confused those players for 10 years, and now you've got them moving around. I would not be surprised if I went back and re-listened to yesterday's show if I said the wrong name over the course of those conversations. So Tim Parker now heading to the Revs. Some of the details behind this: Tim Parker's deal is done at the end of this year. He's on about $1 million. Henry Kessler's has a second year on his contract at a similar number for next year. And then Kessler has options going forward after that. So the Revs get about $1.2 million in allocation over the next 2 years from these trades. They get off about $1 million from Dwan Jones. Will Sands in return is very little in that spot. And then they swap out Kessler's longer-term contract for Parker's shorter-term contract in all of this. And then they make a big signing over the course of this weekend as well, Tom, that I believe you broke.
Yeah, Luca Langoni, also CL Merlo has been on that deal, plenty of other people. A club record deal for the New England Revolution, just under $7 million. I believe like $6.8 million was the initial fee. It is one of the highest fees for a U22 initiative player. I was impressed that the Revs were able to get this done as a U22. Like, there's a cap on salary you can offer a U20 initiative player. There wasn't it's not like the Revs were being cheap in terms of, we don't want to give this guy a bigger contract. Like, they just simply couldn't. And I didn't know if this was going to end with, okay, fine, like, you can be a DP and whatever, we'll figure it out later. So I think that was really well done by the Revs to stick to their guns and say, look, we cannot give you another dollar more in this contract to fit you, and this deal won't happen if it's going to be that way. So that's super exciting, and that takes the risk much lower than when it's a U22 initiative. There's also you could do some analyses around MLS of the likelihood of a U22 initiative signing hitting and hitting immediately falls in this range. Not 18, right? A little bit older. He's 22, so he's in the last year that he could have been signed on this, and he'll have 3 more years that he can be U22 initiative, and for a big fee. So I really love that kind of profile. I think that the most ambitious clubs in MLS will start using the U22 initiative like this. Miami kind of already did it. Like Federico Redondo, to get him on a U22 initiative deal, it's unreal. Anything like, north of 4 million is kind of the sweet spot, plus a player who's 21 or 22, not a 1 million signing for that's 18 or 19. That is really just a roll of the dice. So I really like that from New England. They can do another one, I believe, in terms of U22 initiative. I don't know if that's what they're planning to or not this summer, but they still have the flexibility. And if they're putting up almost $7 million for Luca Langoni, again, this is an ambitious move. And I particularly want to harp on this because we were very critical of the DeJuan Jones trade. And I stand by everything I said, but fair is fair. This is a really good signing. And I do like the Tim Parker Henry Kessler trade for them in that they have a glut of center backs. Henry Kessler is on more money long term, and Tim Parker's deal is up after this year. I was told with Henry Kessler's contract option for 26, it is very, very high, and is not something that I would be expected to be picked up. They would have to rework that, but that gives Henry Kessler leverage. Again, I like Henry Kessler as a player, but this all comes down to kind of cap maneuvering, roster construction, and everything else.
Yep, I will say that the Kessler move I think is huge for them. It still goes into what we talked about with DeJuan Jones, which was like this club has mismanaged themselves over the last few years to give Kessler and Jones, but less Jones, the extensions that they did without having a coach or not knowing who their coach is that now don't fit into the style of the coach you hired. That is all true. But if you are going to start making these moves, which is we want to clean up the back end of our cap and be able to change this team going forward, Tim Parker, his contract ends this year. Xavier Arriaga next year is a team option.
Oh, yeah.
Dave Romney is a team option. Andrew Farrell is a team option. They could completely flip the center back position, a position that has been a weakness for them over the course of the last year and a half. And they could do so without having to move off any of them. And they would have brought in $600,000 in allocation along with Tim Parker. And I would argue Tim Parker probably makes them better today than Henry Kessler does, and probably makes them better today than a lot of other moves they would have made in a similar type of trade. And so I think it's a pretty good move for them. They are in a weird spot where it's like, okay, if you're win now, how do you do that with some of these players that you clearly don't believe in? The other part of the win now convo that I said last week is like DeJuan Jones is a win now player. Any move you make for a starting left back next year, that is going to be like if they hit. And you already know what you get from a player in Jones, but clearly they were up against the cap in a way in which they felt these moves are necessary. And then you add in Langoni, which is huge for them because, as we mentioned, Shankly is on the season-ending injury list. And last year, they really they shot the moon with the move to bring Shankly in for Barrero, who was out. I don't know that you do that more than once. Like, that's a really tough move to make, to be able to like bring in a new big DP player, have them hit quickly enough that you want to keep them after, or find a loan potential move. So this is really exciting, I think, to help Carlos Heel feel more comfortable, make this team more competitive. You're probably going to make Veroni a better player by bringing in a legitimate winger. You take pressure off Barrero as well, as he still works his way back in. Like, I think for Revs fans, you should be, I guess, excited about this. Your hope is from this point on, it's a reset going forward, and it's not 9 months away from the next reset, which is what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, and so I think that all puts everything in perspective as well. Like, we knew that they were working on the Langoni deal when the DeJuan Jones trade went. But again, this wasn't just let's get allocation money. And again, your point is, there's arguments to be made, Parker or Henry Kessler, who's a better player right now. And like, just the fact that that's a conversation, whatever way that you lean, at least that they're getting that back while creating more cap space with the allocation money. So like, that's why I like that trade so much, because it doesn't make them worse necessarily tomorrow. And they're getting allocation money. So it's the ability to reload on the fly rather than rebuild. Because, again, you cannot be a rebuilding team if you have Carlos Hill. And, like, I not at the risk of repeating myself, that's what I like so much about the Langoni move. Again, he could flop. Maybe the scouting wasn't right. Maybe he's not going to be a good player. Maybe whatever it is, right? Like, but the process of okay, we have Carlos Hill, we have all of this. Like, yes, we've either made some mistakes or we want to tweak the roster under Caleb Porter. Instead of just saying, we're trading DeJuan Jones, we're trading Henry Kessel, we're just trying to open up cap space. I promise in the winter we'll be better. I promise in the whatever, right? Like, no, man, like if you have Carlos Hill, you have to try to exhaust as many options as you can without, again, stupidly mortgaging the future. So I think that they straddled that line really, really well over the last week.
Yeah, Kessler has started 15 of 23 games in MLS play, so he's not even a full-time locked-in starter. In that debate between Kessler and Parker, I don't think either of them fit Caleb's game model. Neither of them are elite passers out of the back. They're not super comfortable. The big thing with Parker, though, is like if he can cover some ground and win some tackles, they have been very soft to play against in transition. They're soft to play against up the middle of the field. And so just adding and helping a little bit of that would be good. Maybe he can partner Arriaga and make Arriaga's deficiencies a little bit less to allow him to do the things he does well, passing out of the back. And in all of this, by the way, we also still mentioned Peyton Miller. They are super high on. He has started 3 of their last games. They played tonight against Nashville in Leagues Cup, so that we'll see if he's in the lineup once again. That's the last group stage game of Leagues Cup to play. And so they've opened up space for him to play and prove what he can do and who he is. And maybe the decision at the end of this year is we think he's good enough to help us win next year, and we don't want to go and replace him. And a player like Sands is what you stick with at that spot, which would be great. That would be a great ending to all of this for them. I mentioned him 2-3 weeks ago in my weekend recap notes. I love his game, and I think he could be a difference maker in MLS. So the Revs making some more moves. Would you think this is done for them? They probably aren't going to use the spot to fill.
No, they're not done. They're not done.
Oh.
No. I don't know.
Caleb Porter said 3 moves, right?
Yeah. And he's...
And this is 1 of 3, was what he said.
Yeah,
Tom's got to go through his sources, figure out what they said. Okay, I'll remember this now. Caleb Porter publicly said that they were planning for 3 moves. DeJuan Jones is not one of those moves. The Will Sands DeJuan Jones was not part of them. I believe Langoni was one of them. So he actually already put out there that they're going to try and make 2 more moves.
Yeah, I could see them bringing in a central midfielder. I believe that was a priority coming into the window. So yeah, again, I don't have anything more definitive that I can report at the moment, but like the plan is absolutely for them to not be done.
Are we bringing Revs fans back from the brink now, or are we leaving them there for now until we see it all?
Look, again,
Revs fans not going to listen to you anyway, so you can say whatever you want here.
My natural inclination is to always believe in a team with Carlos Hill, but like they're the last place team with Carlos Hill. Again, I think that they're better than last place in the Eastern Conference. I don't think that they're out of the playoff race. And it's only 5 points to catch Atlanta in 9th. Atlanta aren't exactly setting the world on fire. Philly's kind of climbing back up. I would expect them to get there as well. But again, knowing when the season isn't over, and I'm glad that they're operating in that regard this summer transfer window.
They've got a big game against Nashville tonight to try and move into the next round of the Leagues Cup. Could be a chance to make a run in something and maybe steal some momentum as well. Let's talk Leagues Cup overall. That is the last matchups we're trying to figure out for the knockout rounds. The round of 32, I believe, is where we start for this one. Some big matchups, not a ton of great ones, I will say, in the round of 32, like the way teams lined up. You have a bunch of MLS and Liga MX against each other matchups, which is a little bit odd. So a Club America not playing an MLS team, a Tigres not playing an MLS team. Like those kind of take away some of the buzz. A Pachuca already knocked out with the CONCACAF reigning team and all of that. So we were going to go through some of the matchups we like the best. I'll start. I'll say Cruz Azul playing against Orlando, I think, is one of the really exciting ones. Cruz Azul play a hectic style. They try and open up the game. They try and attack. And Orlando have been really good over the last few weeks. They have poured in goals. Facu Torres has been good. Ojeda has been good. They have sort of found a new base that they operate off of. And so I think there's a lot of promise for this team. You also would assume Duncan McGuire would return at some point in this. Yeah,
he should be. I mean, Bald Georgi Maharovic was back last night, like a new signing, because I was like, who did they just sub in? Oh, that's Georgie? What happened? And Colorado Rapids got through. That was a fun game. I'm going to correct you. Pachuca did get through. They're playing Tigres. I think that's going to be a super fun game. And again, like wherever this quarterfinal ends up in that quadrant, the likelihood it's either going to be Columbus or Miami versus Tigres, Pachuca, maybe New York. Like the quarterfinal in this quadrant is going to be awesome. after having Christian Ramirez on the program talking about Pachuca, I got to tell you, I'm rooting for that to happen. Columbus versus Pachuca. This is going to be difficult for them because Tigres have the priority here in this game, so I think it's in Houston. I'm just guessing. I'm not looking at it. But so it's not going to be easy, and they didn't exactly like they should have lost to the Red Bulls. If the Red Bulls finished better, like Pachuca would be out of this tournament. But yeah, so Cruz Azul Orlando, that's a big one. Cincy Santos Laguna should be a good one. I don't know what the status is of Lucho Acosta going forward. Hopefully we can see him again in this tournament. I haven't, not that there hasn't been any updates. I just haven't seen it. Goss, do you know?
I have zero updates. I just would add, because you said it, a lot of the round of 32s or 16s are going forward, have big potential. That one could be Cincy Philly, which is like always fun. So I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah, but I mean, that's another one where it's like we've seen it 100 times.
I would see it again, especially
that's fair.
CQL.
That's fair, but like I think your answer was the correct one on Cruz Azul Orlando. That's probably the one I'm looking forward to. Club America versus Atlas, like that'll be cool. Club America, if they get through playing, and if Portland plays Seattle, Portland plays St. Louis. If Portland and America play each other in the round of 16, I think that would be a super fun game. So yeah, to your point, like we'll see how some of these matchups go, but next, like the round of 16, the quarterfinals, I think there's a possibility to see some better games.
Toluca at Houston is an interesting one. Houston yesterday, 3 goals in the first half against RSL, 0.6 XG on those 3 goals. Like they scored wild moments. Ache's first goal deflected off a long strike. Okay, fine. Ponce got credit, I believe, for that goal.
Did he? Because I thought it was his, and then they gave it an own goal, and then I don't know what happened.
Then maybe they left it as the own goal. I saw it move and change. Either way, it's like not a super dangerous moment. Dorsey puts it. Okay, it ends up as an own goal. Dorsey puts a good ball in. Ponce makes a good run. Puts
excellent movement. I think
yeah.
Calling it good belies that run. That was super intelligent. He waited for the defender to look over his shoulder. He made a really hard run to the near post. And what I thought was a really nice finish apparently was an own goal. So I'm giving him a ton of credit for the movement, and you can't take that away from him.
Yeah, and they go up 3-0 at halftime. What was bizarre was for RSL on goal difference, they could have gotten through by still losing. And like you have a Houston team up 3-0, that's kind of, they're cruising towards the end of that game. Yeah. And so it was pretty shocking to not see RSL be able to come back. That's why Chicho Arango, who now is back from a thing we don't know, which is great, classic MLS, that's why he came on at halftime. Because a goal or two was enough for them to potentially go through. And so it was odd just to see them not able to at least get one over the line. Tarbell was awesome in this game. He has been one of the best backup keepers in the league. This is like kind of a prime moment for him because there's less Open Cup games of like this is where he shines. And so I think Houston is a team that's primed to be good at this, and Toluca are one of the best Liga MX teams right now. So plus you throw that in Houston, like that's a really fun matchup. I think that's a really fun game.
And a goalkeeper who takes penalties. Just saying.
Yeah. 100%.
We need Toluca to get a penalty just for that.
Yeah, or let it be tied because I assume it goes straight to penalty kicks at that point, which would be fun. Columbus and Inter Miami are set up for a round of 16 matchup if they both win. Mm-hmm. In this one, Columbus hosting SKC, Miami hosting Toronto after Toronto won their group, I believe. I don't know how to explain that. I don't remember if there was a reasoning. Huh?
Oh, that's right. Didn't they all tie in 2 points? I don't know.
Yeah. So Miami, the home team for that one, I believe. But like that would be ideal. Columbus against Miami would be awesome. It would be great to see them out on the field against each other. They are probably the 2 best teams in MLS right now. So like that could be really cool as well going forward. Look at the bracket, looking at where teams stand right now. Do you have a favorite?
I would lean Club America. Again, I was going to be boring and say Club America and Columbus, even though, again, they're entering I just think that these 2 teams are so very good. I think Club America has an easier route. So they play Atlas. If they win, they would probably play Portland, which, again, I think would be a very good game. Toluca and Colorado Rapids and Houston and Juarez are the other ones. Like, that could get you to the semifinal. And, like, you would be avoiding some other. Like, Columbus would have to play probably Miami and then one of probably Tigres and Pachuca, just to get to the semifinals, where then it could be Cincy or Cruz Azul or whatever, right? Like, so I just think that I would lean Club America because of a slightly easier path. But again, if it was Club America and Columbus Crew in the final, that'd be pretty cool.
on a similar vein, just the other side of that bracket or that quadrant, LAFC, like they have Austin. They'd play the winner of Necaxa San Jose. They would then be in the situation.
San Jose and Necaxa is such a low-key sickos matchup that I'm looking forward to. I can't explain why.
You and Eva Longoria are going to be the only two watching. So if you do happen to meet, you'll have something to talk about, which is great to know. Because I've always been worried about that for you going forward. The other thing for LAFC is if the Galaxy win, like they could be set up to play the Galaxy, which would be really cool. But Club America as that hub team, they are hubbed in California. So LAFC has the chance to go to a final and not leave California. They are a knockout competition team. The way they set up, they can play against the ball. Bouanga, if he's on, is good. They're going to introduce Giroud, which I think is just going to like give the games a lift and have a little bit of like focus come back for a situation where it's like they were down 2-0 to Vancouver. It's Leagues Cup, doesn't matter to you. Like you want to win MLS Cup. You're pushing for Supporters Shield. I think now Giroud coming back gets everyone back on their toes saying like, oh no, we want to be locked in. We want to play well. We know everyone's watching. So I think LAFC have a really good shot at this one. Columbus as well. You said it, like it could be tough, but also like, I don't know, they're Columbus and you don't have Club America on your side of the bracket. So you have that opportunity to not have to face them. And you could face Tigres, but it would be Tigres or Pachuca. So at least you don't have to play both of them in back-to-back matchups going forward. And they will host every single game being MLS Cup reigning champions. So a big opportunity for them in that one. Do you have a team that needs it the most before we get out of here? Like, do you have a team that you look at and say, you should be putting everything in either because of who they are or because of the way the bracket broke?
Look, I mean, the cop-out answer here is like everyone. Like, what is the point of playing a knockout stage without giving everything, right? But, again, there's two schools of thought. It'd be a team like San Jose. You're so far away from the playoff line that is designed to not happen like this in MLS. On August 6th, you should not be so far below the playoff line. Right now, you say, screw it. Push all in. Hey, we got our starting goalkeeper back. Our club record signing has been here long enough. Like, this could be it for us this season. Let's get after it. Or, again, I think a team like Colorado, team like Houston, showing big game chops if they're winning some of these big knockout games, I think that would go a long way for them.
Yeah. The other one would be Philly. Like, can you steal something?
True.
Because you have been a decent knockout team, not in finals, but on the road. Can you get a CONCACAF spot locked in? Like, can you just reignite what you've been and sort of teams? And again, you look at the path and it's like, yeah, they'll have to play one of the bigger teams at some point, but they could get to this point playing a Cincinnati, who they kind of are comfortable with and then sort of an Orlando or a Cruz Azul at the best case scenario or worst case scenario in the next round after that one. All right. That feel good?
That feels good. I feel good, guys. How do you feel?
Feels great. The U.S. women's national team is headed to a gold medal match. That's the best feeling so far. I believe my alarm's going to go off in 10 minutes. We've got basketball. We've got volleyball coming up. We've got canoeing.
Do you set alarms for Olympic events?
I have started setting alarms so that I don't have to think about it, and I label the alarms. That's what's new in my life. I've never labeled an alarm before, and it's like this amazing feeling because the alarm goes off, and I don't have to wonder, why did I set an alarm, and why is the alarm going off, which has always been my problem. Especially in the morning when I wake up and say, why am I waking up? Why do I care about this? Why is because I love all of you and we do it for all of you. If you want to subscribe to the Patreon, you can do so. You get access to the Discord. We're going to get our next happy hour online coming up as well. We've got a ton of content for you at Soccerwise. Tomorrow, we will have Casey White on once again to do our post-game U.S. coverage. We will also know who the gold medal match is against. Is it Marta's final match ever for Brazil, or is it the reigning World Cup title, Spain, and a chance for Emma Hayes to, as she said, effing finally beat the Spanish. So a big opportunity coming up in the next match. We will break it down for you tomorrow, and then me and Tom will be back on Thursday. At that point, we will know all of the Leagues Cup matchups. We'll probably dig in pretty deep there, and Tom will keep, serving out those scoops and keep giving us all the big news and all the big stuff. So thank you to all of you who are in the chat. Thank you to all of you who are listening wherever you find your podcasts. We've loved having you, and we'll talk to you again very, very